We got George Galloway in the building.
Welcome.
So, like I said, not enough young people out there seem to care enough about politics at the moment, and it directly affects us. Who is George Galloway in that world of politics?
Well, politics doesn't care about young people, and so young people don't care about politics. It's often said that young people are apathetic. I say they're apoplectic about the pathetic nature of the political class. That's my take on it. I'm running for mayor tomorrow, but that's by the by. I'm on the radio myself. I've had a radio show for many years, and I'm really happy to be on, not for the radio, though I hope it appears on some kind of radio, some kind of medium. But I met Post the other night. We had a really good few hours. We both missed the Manchester City European Cup tie.
Didn't miss much, I'll be honest.
Well, that's right. But for the sake of our conversation, we just left the football alone, and I thought that we made a lot of progress together. Young people are not yet commodified enough by capitalism to be important in the political process. When they become so, and when they become politicized, then they'll be taken more seriously. But until they vote collectively, until they vote in their own interests, they'll be marginalized and left.
I think that's a really important topic that you just touched on there. Number one, the voting process. I was asked just earlier on today, how do you vote? And a lot of people actually don't know.
No.
It's okay, Chams. You can tell him it was me.
It was Posty. I just wasn't going to say it was Posty. Posty didn't know how he was supposed to vote. He said he wants to vote for you, George, I believe. However, he didn't know how to do it. So what is the process?
Well, absurdly, elections are held on Thursdays, not weekends. You have to go, usually in the rain, sometimes in the dark, to a school to go and vote in a classroom in an iron box. When, of course, in 2016, you could vote in many other places over a longer period in many more efficient ways. But that's where we are. So if you're on the electoral register, and it's easy to check that online, then you've got a right to vote tomorrow. And you go to your nearest polling station, which is almost certainly a school, and you get 3 pieces of paper, one orange, one pink, one yellow. And if you wanted, say, to vote for me, you'd vote George Galloway, number 3 on the ballot paper, as it happens, for Mayor of London. Then you'd vote for your member of the London Assembly. Most listeners, viewers, won't even know that there is a London Assembly, but there is.
What is that?
Well, it's a good question. Everybody in Scotland knows they've got a parliament. Everybody in Wales knows they've got an assembly. But virtually nobody in London knows that they've got a London Assembly, which is supposed to hold the mayor to account. The mayor is big business, by the way. It's an £18 billion a year business. So who runs it and how they run it is really important to everyone, because it's our money, right? So the Assembly's job is to keep an eye on the mayor, hold the mayor to account. So the second ballot paper that you've got tomorrow is the election of your own local member of the London Assembly. And the third ballot paper is for the London Assembly city-wide, and you vote for a party. And if, for example, you voted for my party, Respect, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to me of this interview, I hope, then you put your X at the name Respect, brackets, George Galloway.
So you mentioned, George, sorry to cut you off, you mentioned that the London mayor receives an £18 billion budget a year to spend on. How do you think our current mayor, Boris Johnson, has spent the money, and do you think he's spending it well, and how would you be spending it differently?
He's been spending it on people like him. London is run for people like him, that look like him, that live like him, that think like him.
What's him?
Yeah, what are people like him?
He's a blonde, old Etonian, Bullingdon Club, that's the bullying club at Oxford University that, you know, light up £50 notes and throw bread rolls at waiters and so on. That's the class, the gilded, golden 1% that he represents, and he's run London for them. Just in the last 24 hours, a stunning piece of news has been smuggled out about Millbank Tower, the iconic 1960s supposedly protected building on the Thames, and under cover of darkness on his last day as mayor, he gave somebody permission to knock it down and build 100% luxury flats with zero so-called affordable housing in it. And it so happens that the people he gave the contract to do it to are major donors to the Tory party. So that gives you an idea of the kind of mayor that Boris Johnson has been, and I'd be very, very different. So you ask Post, there's 18 billion a year spent mainly, but not exclusively, on three things: police, London transport, and on the other infrastructure issues here in London. And he's wasted it on things like the Garden Bridge, for example, which we didn't need. We've got a Thames pathway for people that like that kind of thing, and I'm one of them. And we could have developed that Thames pathway and protected it far cheaper than building a garden bridge over the Thames. He's wasted it in the sense that he's allowed people to ride a coach and horses through everything that was desirable and should have been protected in London. Elephant and Castle is a good example. Have you seen it? Mm-mm. Elephant and Castle has been levelled, and the working class have been shipped out. They might as well have put them in railway wagons and shipped them out because they're no longer present. It's just a big gap. And what's going to take the place of that gap, of that council housing, thousands of council houses, is more luxury development.
So how are you going to change all this? I mean, in an ideal world, you become mayor of London. What are you going to do with this 18 billion?
Well, I'm going to spend the police section of it much better. The police have got to start to look like London instead of look like an occupying force, which is what they look like in many parts of London. It's got to start looking like London. The police has got to be led by people.
So how do you change the whole policing system? And would you say ethnic minorities are targeted by the police?
Well, do bears shit in the woods? Is the Pope a Catholic? The black people that are watching this know the answer to it, so do you. Mm-hmm. The Muslim people who are watching it know the answer, and if you're black and Muslim, well, you've really got a problem with the police. You're 26 times more likely to be stopped and searched than someone who's white and non-Muslim. As I saw this morning, just this day in northwest London, a huge patrol of police ready to flag down cars to check their insurance and tax details. Every single one, everyone was black.
Yeah, of course.
And I drove past, as I've driven past 1,000 times and never got flagged down. I've got tax and insurance, but how do they know I do? They don't. They just know I'm white.
Yeah.
So the police has got to look like London. Look, Stephen Lawrence, exactly almost to the day, 23 years ago, was murdered in Eltham in South London. Macpherson had an inquiry, concluded that the police were institutionally racist, promised to do something about it, and the numbers of minority officers has gone down, not up. And now there's lots of reasons for that, but one of them is the way the police behave to the minority officers when they join. The canteen culture, Ku Klux Klan hats, and shit in your sandwiches in the canteen. This has got to change.
And how would you go about doing that?
Well, the mayor's in charge of the police. So you can ask yourself, would the commissioner of the Metropolitan Police fancy facing me on a Monday morning to answer these questions? I don't think so. In fact, this current commissioner only has a year to go. We need a new one. And we need a statement appointment. We need somebody that looks like you as the head of the Metropolitan Police. We need somebody that looks like London. 53% of London are from the minority communities, but only 11% of the police are from the minorities.
So someone from an ethnic minority background is the best person for the job?
Well, you see, they always hide behind this best person for the job. I always argue, how good do you have to be? Do you have to be as good as the man that presided over the shooting of Mark Duggan? Do you have to be as good as the woman who presided over the shooting of John Charles de Menezes, the Brazilian electrician who got 5 bullets in his head while he was lying helpless on the floor of a London Underground train in Stockwell? Have you got to be that good? So I say, let's make a statement. Let's make a break. Let's tell the population of London that things are going to change. And if I'm the mayor, you can be sure that they're going to change. The current commissioner's got a year to go. Maybe he'll chuck it.
Totally, I totally agree. I hope you succeed, because I totally agree.
About how the Mark Duggan case was dealt with, George? Could you go into detail on your opinion?
Both Mark Duggan and John Charles de Menezes were slain, then slandered, adding insult to injury. They were killed in cold blood, and then to justify the killing in cold blood, a pack of lies was told about them. And the injury suffered, therefore, by their families was compounded, was much, much greater. The CCTV never seems to work when you need it, when it's going to reveal truths that are uncomfortable to the power. In the case of Mark Duggan, first he pulled a gun in the back of the cab, then he threw a gun away, and then they found a gun behind a fence that he'd have had to be Houdini or a world-class acrobat to have thrown there. In the case of John Charles, they thought he was a Muslim terrorist on his way to blow up the London Underground. But instead of questioning him when he was helpless on the floor, they put 5 bullets in his head. Then they said he'd been running down the escalator, and that's why they were suspicious. Except it was then proved he never ran down the escalator. He used his Oyster card and walked down the escalator, and the pictures proved it. So then they said, well, he was behaving suspiciously. You know the drill. They're always behaving suspiciously, suspected, guilty of being Muslim, guilty of being black. Everybody here watching this knows that particular crime. So things have got to change. Not just for the sake of the minorities, by the way, because every one of us needs the police. If, God forbid, somebody came in here now and burst in this door with a machete, we'd all dial the police. We need the police. Actually, poor people need the police more than rich people do. Minority communities need the police more than others do, because crime threatens all of us. But if you don't trust the police, if you think the police are actually an occupation army that are here to do you down, then that's bad news all around, because it means that if you know of a criminal, if you know of a crime that's happened or about to happen, you're not going to come forward and tell the police, because you've got no faith in them.
George, you mentioned a really important point there again, the issue of trust, and you're saying about us trusting the police. How do we trust you? I mean, politicians, we're used to not being able to trust. You throw around kind of idealistic solutions to things, and then a lot of them don't manifest, which is why a lot of people kind of just think there's no point in voting at all.
You make good money as well. In the long run, you make good money. So what's to say that this is all genuine?
In a way, people have just got to look at my record. I've been in politics for 40 years. I was in Parliament for 30 years. I was thrown out by Tony Blair because of my role in the leadership of the anti-war movement. The stand that I made against the war in Iraq, everything I said turned out to be right and true. Everything Blair said turned out to be wrong and a lie. And I'm still here fighting. I could have gone away when he expelled me. I could have enjoyed my life. I have many other things. I'm on the radio, I'm on television, and so on. I could have done many other things, but I'm still here fighting. So look at my record. Go to YouTube. I've got 100 million views on my speeches and interviews on YouTube. So you'll get a good picture of where I stand compared to the other. Here's the key point. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. Whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, it's not going to be different today than it was yesterday or tomorrow. It's not going to be different when I say it to you to when I would say it to somebody else. Everything I've just said to you in this interview, I say in all my interviews on any medium, whatever the audience is. So I'm asking people to trust me, and I think I've got a right to ask them that.
What was the truth behind Iraq then, for people that don't know?
Well, Iraq turned out to be, exactly as we in the anti-war movement predicted, an unmitigated disaster. I mean, without any mitigation. There is no good thing you could say in defense of the Iraq war. But it didn't seem like that when we were fighting to try and stop it. It has sent fanatic extremism cascading everywhere in the world, including here in our own country, including in our underground trains and on our buses. It has caused the death of well over 1 million people and rising. It has seen the birth of ISIS and Al-Qaeda getting a fantastic boost. And it was all on a pack of lies. And because I knew that it was a pack of lies, because I knew Iraq better than anyone else in British politics, I had a duty to stand up and say so. And because I knew they were lying, I had to express that in the strongest possible terms.
What was the lie?
The lie was that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, chemical, nuclear, biological weapons, and that it was a clear and present danger to us. I said the opposite, that if Iraq did have weapons of mass destruction, you wouldn't be invading it. Korea has weapons of mass destruction. You ain't going to invade it because you know that the weapons exist, but they didn't exist in Iraq. What I said to Blair personally in the library corridor outside the gentleman's lavatory, to be precise, 2 weeks before the war, I said there's no Al-Qaeda in Iraq, but if you and Bush invade it, there'll be hundreds of thousands of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. There's no way that the fall of Baghdad will be the beginning of the end. It will just be the end of the beginning. And the Iraqis will fight you with their teeth, if necessary, until they've driven you from their country. And all of these three things is exactly what happened.
So what was the truth? Why did they invade it?
They invaded it for three reasons. The third of them, in my opinion, is the most important, though most people might disagree. First, for oil, because Iraq, together with Saudi Arabia, is the basket or the barrel to end all battles. It's the mother of all barrels of oil, and they wanted a government, a regime that they could control. They had it in Saudi Arabia, they didn't have it in Iraq. Saddam Hussein committed many crimes and many huge mistakes. But the one thing he wasn't was a yes man to them. And they need a yes man to them when they're in control of that kind of treasure, that kind of black gold. So to control the oil. Secondly, for Israel, Israel cannot accept any Arab, any Muslim country being strong and united. It has to be broken. Otherwise, it becomes a threat, a balance to them. The third reason is, in my opinion, the most important. It was to terrify the world with American power, to show the world that America cannot be stood up against, and that no country, no group of countries will ever be allowed to rival American power. And the main threat that they saw was China and Russia, both emerging from their pasts, enormously powerful militarily and economically and culturally. And it was to send a message to them, don't mess with us. Bush and the other maniacs on the Potomac wanted to use Iraq as a kind of showcase of what will happen if you stand up against America. And that just didn't work.
What's the relationship between Israel and America then? Why do you think America made that move on Israel's behalf?
Well, Britain gave birth to Israel 100 years ago, almost exactly. The centenary is coming up next year. And America took over after the Second World War as the funder, the armor, and the chief diplomatic and political aid to Israel. The pro-Israel lobby controls politics in the United States. I say pro-Israel lobby. I don't mean Jewish lobby. That's not some kind of soft way of saying Jewish lobby. Most of the supporters of Israel in America are not Jews. Not all Jews are supporters of Israel, and certainly not all supporters of Israel are Jews. In the United States, the Southern Baptist Convention of Evangelical Protestants has more members than all of the Jews in the whole world, and they're mad for Israel. They don't like Jews, but they're mad for Israel. So in the United States, if you stand up, if you say what I'm saying now, you'd be finished in politics. If you say what I've been saying for the last 30 years, you'd be finished in politics in the United States.
So how comes Trump isn't finished? How comes Trump is allowed to say exactly what he wants and it's okay? And what are your thoughts on Donald Trump?
It's a good question. Trump emerges from the same kind of bankruptcy of the political class that we're talking about here in Britain. The fact that he's berserk, the fact that he's dangerous, is one of the attractions to a certain class of people in the United States. It's because people hate the political class that they're turning not just to Trump in the Republican field, but Bernie Sanders in the Democratic field, because he comes from outside that political class. He's a guy like me, and he is pushing Hillary Clinton all the way to the finishing line. He just won a stunning victory in Indiana, and he's likely to win 2 more next week. But Trump, imagine Trump with his finger on the nuclear trigger. Can you imagine Trump getting up half drunk in the middle of the night and stumbling over his briefcase and setting off World War III? You better imagine it, because he's just won, effectively, the Republican nomination. But the point I'm making to you is he comes out of this swamp of anger at the politicians that you mentioned earlier implicitly in your question to me. Nobody trusts the politicians, so they go for Trump because he ain't a politician. Now, the fact is he's more dangerous than the politicians, but that's why he's attracting record support. Millions of people have voted for him already.
Well, I know that it's just a little bit different. Obviously, we spoke about, the fact that the London mayor is in charge of the police force. Obviously, within the music industry, a lot of musicians who may have had past or may not, when they're trying to do shows and stuff, a lot of their shows get locked off by the police.
Locked off means cancelled.
Sorry, cancelled. Sorry.
I don't know what Chams is.
Layman's terms. Yeah. So a lot of their shows get cancelled because obviously they may have prior offences, etc., and they're deemed as a safety issue. Is there anything that can be done about that to kind of support them? Because, especially people who do have a past and they find music as a way out, and then they see it as, okay, I'm close to just moving away from my history. And then that happens. Sometimes a lot of the time it pushes people right back to where they started.
Well, everybody's got a past, and as we discover more and more, including the politicians, they made an attempt to ban poppers the other day until it turned out that half the House of Commons had been using them. Me, I thought it was a Christmas party thing that kids played with, but it turns out to be different. Everybody's got a past, and everybody has the right to leave their past behind and to start afresh. I'm not aware of the problem that you mentioned, but you've made me aware of it, and I'll deal with it if I become the mayor.
Have you heard of the 696 form?
I'll have people like you advising me on these things. Sorry.
Have you heard of the 696 form?
No. Is this? I did get approached in Croydon recently about some forms of music being shut down by the police because they're and it's black music, because they're supposedly misogynistic and homophobic and so on. I don't know what your stand on that is. It's quite dangerous, I think, to ban music. Whatever the words are, even if I hate the words, it's quite dangerous, I think, to ban it. Is that what you had in mind?
No, it's not banning. It's like literally a form that, a lot of...
it's a risk assessment.
A risk assessment form for like a lot of grime and rap events that we have in London. It's kind of like prejudice only to like our culture. It's like they're policing our music and how it's performed and what times it's performed. That it's a bit ridiculous, to be fair. So hopefully you can find an alternative.
Well, we're all in this boat. It's difficult for me if I were to call a meeting, for example, on say Palestine. Or what they call anti-Semitism, which I would have a different interpretation of or a different definition of. It would be very difficult for me to get a venue to do that now. I've got an open-top bus around the corner. It's very difficult for me to get it insured because I'm me and because I have my views and because my views are opposed vehemently by some others, because I've been the victim of violent attack and so on, that makes life very difficult. So I'm feeling what you're saying, and I'll do what I can to help. In fact, I think I'm going to recruit all 3 of you here tonight to
We don't come cheap.
Come to City Hall with me.
What attacks were you?
Well, the reason I'm wearing a hat is because I was hospitalized in August of 2014, just a week after my 60th birthday. A man half my age attacked me and hospitalized me, and I'm still limping as a result. And although the scars have healed, I still need makeup on my head before I take my hat off. And it was over Israel. He was attacking me because he was a fanatic for Israel. He was wearing an Israeli army uniform when he attacked me in Goulburn Road. And by the grace of God, I could well have been killed, but I was saved by two passers-by. But I was already on the ground and he was on top of me, and if he'd had a knife, I'd be dead.
Can you clarify whether you can separate your views on the two? Like, what do you... I don't want people from Israel to think George Galloway hates everybody from Israel, or do you? Like,
Unless
what's
you do.
going on with that?
I so don't. Some of the people that are with me right now in this room are Jewish. Some of my comrades sitting on the bus outside are Jewish. This has nothing to do with disliking or hating or disrespecting Jewish people or their religion. As a matter of fact, as a believer in God myself, I'm required to pay respect to the Jewish religion, the foundation of the monotheistic faiths. We love Jews, hate Zionism. What's Zionism? It's nothing to do with religion. The people who founded it were all atheists. It is nationalism that determined to create a white colonial settler state. As it turned out in the Middle East, though, they tried first in Africa, in Uganda, in Seychelles, in Patagonia, in Argentina. They were ready to put their settler state anywhere that the British would give them. Ended up in the Middle East, but that's, in a sense, a historical quirk. It could have been anywhere. Now, I'm against Israel because it is a white colonial settler state. For the same reason I was against Rhodesia, as they obscenely described it, as for the same reason I was against South Africa when it was an apartheid white settler state. As I told you, Post, but maybe others don't know, I was underground, under apartheid, in South Africa, with the liberation movement, moving from place to place, on the run, arrested, beaten, all of it. And every car in which I traveled, every house in which I slept, every dinner that I ate, every rand that was put in my pocket was given to me by Jewish members of the African National Congress. The leader of MK, the military wing of the African National Congress, was a Jew called Joe Slovo, and I salute his memory now. The idea that somebody like me, who has fought racism all of his life, including underground in South Africa, could hate somebody because of their religion or their ethnicity is simply obscene and absurd. I'm against the political idea that because you can go to somebody else's country and steal it from them. And that's what white colonial settlers always have done. And they didn't just steal the land. In the case of Africa, I'm speaking to you three here now. They stole you. They stole your grandfather. They stole your grandmother and put them in the hold of a ship and shipped them from Africa to the so-called New World and sold them as beasts of burden. They did it because they could, because they had the power to, because they had the advanced weaponry and technology and so on. So me, I'm with the colonized. I'm with the oppressed and against the oppressor and the colonizer. And the Palestine story is exactly the same story. The Europeans came with their superior guns and their superior technology and the backing of the biggest powers, and they took a country off somebody else. They wiped it off the map. They kicked 800,000 Palestinians out of their homes, literally kicked where they didn't kill. 800,000 fled and have never been allowed to return. And that 800,000 is now 13 million people. If I go out on the street now, in any street, there'll be a Palestinian, a refugee, who's not allowed to go back to the land and the house that their fathers, grandfathers still have the key for, still have the title deeds for. but are simply forbidden to go. The guy who attacked me in the street had converted to Judaism just weeks before, but by the very act of conversion, he attained the right to go and live in Palestine, on the land and in the house of a Palestinian who's been expelled from it. How unjust is that?
How did that happen? How did he get invited to Palestine and live in a house? What is it?
The law in Israel is that any Jewish person has the right to, quote, return to Palestine. But the guy that assaulted me has never been in Palestine, neither have any of his ancestors for 10,000 years. He was a Catholic, and he became a Jew. I'm just pointing out the absurdity of this, that a Palestinian whose land it is not allowed to live there, but any one of us, well, they wouldn't let you in because they are also discriminating against black people in Israel, against Ethiopians, against people from Africa. They are engaged in a racist witch hunt against black refugees. People look into it, you'll see it. But any one of us, in theory, can become a Jew. And if we become a Jew, we automatically have the right to go and live in what they call Israel. Whilst a Palestinian whose house and land it is in a refugee camp, if they're unlucky, and wandering the streets of the rest of the world without a passport, without any rights, without a country to call their own. It's just unjust.
Speaking of invasions and, things that you mentioned, how many countries has Great Britain not invaded in the world?
I misled you the other night.
Okay.
It's even worse than I said.
Okay.
It's 23 countries.
Yeah.
Only 23 countries in the entire world Britain hasn't invaded yet. I'm saying yet because we're about to invade Libya again. The danger of us invading Syria again has not receded. Or at least if it has receded, it's receded only a little. It's not a done situation, that. Only 23 places in the whole world Britain has not invaded. There has been a British soldier killing in a foreign land, and I've done the research on this, every year since 1665. 1665 to 2016, there's been a British soldier somewhere shooting somebody. And as Desmond Tutu, Archbishop Tutu put it, they came here with their guns in one hand and their Bibles in the other, and they told us how to pray with our eyes closed, and when we opened them, they'd stolen our country and everything all around us. That's what the use of British imperial force has been and continues to be. Used to be dressed up in different clothes, in civilizing Christian clothes. We have to occupy Africa because, well, they're like children, aren't they? You infantilize them, and then you say, they need me actually to hold their hand until they're big enough to look after themselves. Meanwhile, you're stealing everything that you can carry. It's a very sordid story, by the way. And most British people don't know it, even with all the social media and so on that we've got. I regularly made the case for reparations, for example, on my radio show. Reparation to the people who were torn from their own lands and taken as slaves and put to work as beasts of burden in the fields. And every time I do, these are phone-in shows, right? Every time I do, I am met with a tidal wave of opposition from people who say, why should I, who never benefited from slavery, compensate you, who were never a slave? We have to put all that stuff behind us. It's always white people that want to put it behind them. It's never usually black people. And as I said once, again, a very controversial statement. The next time you're feeling nervous walking down the road with a black man walking behind you, just remember that he's got a lot more reason to be nervous of you than you have of him.
Amen.
Let's talk about, because, you know, when people have like such a great responsibility and political positions, such as, you know, like the Prime Minister, like I could personally never imagine being the Prime Minister just because it's a lot of burden. There's a lot of things that you're responsible for. I don't like to be responsible for that many people. But I think that somebody in that position would probably want to do it because they get paid a lot. Now, in some of our conversations, you kind of enlightened me on the point that being in such power doesn't actually even get you paid as much as being in a more authoritative place somewhere else. So how much does the Prime Minister get paid a year?
I think he gets 140,000. So the Mayor of London actually gets more than the Prime Minister, and MP gets the same wage as, say, the head of the geography department in a secondary school. So it's not the money they earn in those jobs that's the key point. It's the money in the job that comes next. And that's where the corruption comes in. I've just made a film about Tony Blair. It's called The Killings of Tony Blair. It doesn't involve me killing Tony Blair. It'd be a smash hit if it did. But I reveal in that film that Tony Blair has earned, if that's the word, £100 million in 8 years since leaving office. And the corruption comes in the sense that he's earning it from the very people he served while he was the Prime Minister.
People like who? People like who?
Well, his first job was for Morgan Stanley, the buccaneering, banking, swashbuckling vulture capitalists. And his last job was from the dictatorship of Kuwait, dictatorship of Saudi Arabia, and many other dictatorships. £100 million in 8 years. Nice work if you can get it. But the problem is this. How do we know that the Prime Minister is doing what he thinks he should do rather than doing what he thinks he should do to please somebody who's going to make him very, very rich when he leaves office? And as our Prime Ministers are increasingly young, I mean, Blair's just a few months older than me and he's been out of power for 8 years. And Cameron is well younger than me, but he'll soon be out of office. So these people have got decades in which they're earning this money after leaving office. So it used to be that becoming the Prime Minister of Britain was the top of the heap. Yeah, you couldn't get anything more important. But now it's just a stop on your resume, as the Americans put it. It's just an entry on your CV. You were the Prime Minister, so why don't you, Mr. Banker, or you, Mr. Dictator, why don't you employ me? Because I was the Prime Minister of Britain.
What do you think the relationship was between Tony Blair and Bush?
Well, I used to argue this in the anti-war movement. A lot of people used to call Blair Bush's poodle, but I never believed that. I believed that Blair was Bush's brain. The president's brain was missing, and Blair was that brain. I mean, Bush had the excuse of being an imbecile. You know, they say that the presidential library is full with coloring books and dot-to-dot jigsaws and so on. Blair's a clever guy. I know that because I paid the tax to educate him at Oxford University free of charge and gave him a grant to do so. Blair's a clever guy, and he was needed by Bush. Bush would not have been able to do what he did without Blair.
Do you think Blair was pulling the strings?
Yeah, I do. And I think that the same was true with Mrs. Thatcher and Ronald Reagan in the first Iraq war.
So is there really a strong alliance between England and America? Is it what it seems?
No, if you'll forgive me putting it as bluntly as this, our special relationship with America is the same as Miss Lewinsky's with President Clinton. It's one-sided, it's undignified, it's quite sordid, and it requires the junior partner always to be on their knees. And that's a very humiliating image.
Post, I think you spent too much time with him.
Hey, man, I've been teaching him some things.
No, seriously. For example, whatever view you take on the European Union referendum, for example, is there any other country in the whole world that would allow a foreign president to come and lecture them on how they should vote on something that is entirely their own domestic affair. All we are used for is, if your viewers can think back to when they were at school, there was always a school bully. And the school bully always had some runners around him who wouldn't have been able to be bullies themselves because they were mugs of one kind or another. But if they run around with the school bully, they could do a bit of bullying on their own. They could get a few crumbs off the bully's table. That's the role Britain.
Speaking of schools, and I know you mentioned that, the grants and tuition fee that you helped to pay for. You have kind of said in your manifesto that you are going to be working on free transport for students. Are you going to be taking away the student loan?
Unfortunately, I can't, though I opposed it when I was a member of parliament when it was introduced. Blair stood and tried to stop me going in to vote against it. He said it's only £1,000. I said, but it's the principle. Once it's £1,000, the only way is up. And I said, I felt silly when I said it. I said, it'll soon be £10,000, and he laughed. Well, it's £9,000 now. So before long, it will be 10,000 or more. So if I had the power, I'd scrap the tuition fees and I'd reintroduce the education maintenance allowance that the Tory Lib Dem government stole from the people in the last parliament. But I don't have that power. So what power do I have? I have the power to let the students go free on London transport. So that's what I'm going to do.
That would be good.
What else are you going to do for the
Someone
young
that bunked the trains and tubes.
I'm
happy to hear
we've all done that,
The
we still do.
School students, college students, and university students will all travel free on London transport. The youth services, which are the first thing that every borough council cuts, the government sends down the pipe cuts in public spending. The council then has to decide what does it do with its shrunken budget. They cut youth services, when youth services is actually the last thing that they should cut. They're always talking about gangs. Let me surprise, maybe shock some of your viewers. I was in a gang, although I called it my friends. Everybody else called it a gang. Why were we in a gang? Because we only had the road. The road was the only thing that we had. Where else were we going to go? We all lived in a council house estate. We were all from the same Irish Catholic background, ethnicity. We had no facilities of any kind. We had no swimming pool, no community centre, no youth club, nothing. Not even things that we could have paid for if we'd had money, which we didn't. All we had was the road and the corner. And so that's where we were. Now, look, the devil finds work for idle hands. If the youth have got nothing to do, nowhere to go, then they'll find bad things to do, or others will find bad things for them to do. So I'll be using some of that £18 billion a year, by the way, and it's a 4-year term. We're talking about the best part of £100 billion. I'll be spending it on youth and youth services and youth projects to give the young people a sense of belonging to the society. We're right back to the very first question, actually. If the society doesn't care about you, why would you care about the society?
Just to wrap up, I think, George, you tweeted today a picture of Tess Asplan. We're speaking about people who stand up for what they believe in and the lack of belonging. She stood up. I don't know if everybody knows about what happened. Tess Asplan she's a black photographer who stood up to, I think, 3,000 Nazi soldiers. Was it soldiers?
Well, they would like to be soldiers.
They're soldiers for the Nazi movement. Yeah. And she made a declaration by doing that, and what were your feelings there? Because you've posted that quite a few times, and obviously it's a very powerful image.
I'm so taken by her. Tess is already my Woman of the Year, and it's only May. This is a black woman photographer who stood in front of 3,000 Nazis in Sweden and raised her fist in the salute and showed her defiance of the racist menace of fascism. And I think that picture, the reason I've tweeted it several times, I've got a lot of followers, nearly 1 million followers now on social media, and I want everybody to see it. because it's really important on many levels. First of all, she's a woman. Second, she's a black woman. Third, she's alone. And fourth, she's brave. She is the lioness standing up to this horror, this jackbooted horror of racism. And for me, if there's a more heroic woman emerges in 2016, I certainly want to meet her, and I certainly want to meet Tess.
Yeah, Tess is amazing.
George, before you go, I have to ask, big brother, we saw you acting like a cat. A lot of meows.
A tiger, actually.
Now, obviously, as a politician, you need to command some sort of respect. You kind of put your a little bit, I would say, of your respect on the line when you made such an act. Could you tell us why you did that?
Well, I did it to raise funds for the Palestinian orphans in Gaza. And this was a long time ago now, yeah. We're talking 2006, late 2005, early 2006. So it's a long time ago now. A lot more people are aware of what's happening in Gaza now than were then. And there was not many people queuing up to raise substantial sums of money, tens of thousands of pounds of money for them. And I did it for them. And the only thing I regret about it is that I did the cat too well.
You're a good cat, George.
If I had just been a wooden post and gone through the motions, then nobody would be talking about it now. It's because I was kind of good at being the cat.
And before you go, I heard one of your favorite songs on the tour bus is Dr. Dre, Still Dre. Is this a lie? Is it true?
No, I play it all day.
Your wife's outside, George.
Every day. she's outside filming me and hoping that I.
By the way, George has got a beautiful wife. How old is she?
She's 32.
You done well, George. Hopefully, when I'm your age.
By the grace of God, she's the best thing that ever happened to me. And our little boy, who's 21 months, is, I hope he's followed by
I thought you said he was 21. I was very scared then for a minute.
No, he's 21 months, and I hope he'll be followed by many others. But she's probably bursting the door now in the hope that I don't go into freestyle. But
we won't do it to you today. Maybe next time you can come down, we'll give you like a UK instrumental. To get busy too.
I do a bit of freestyle, because if you're doing it 6-7 hours on top of a bus, as I've been doing, you definitely develop a routine, and you develop a synchronicity with the music. We just drove into Oxford Street playing the reggae version of Michael Jackson's Black or White. I've got to tell you, there was a mass effect. I'm talking thousands of people. Now, I hope that they were reacting to me and showing that they're going to vote for me tomorrow. But whether they were or they weren't, they were reacting to the music, to the beauty of the bus, and to the song. Because that is what most people believe. That's where most people are at. And it filled my heart with joy, I must say. Vote for me tomorrow, won't you? I've done all this talking without mentioning.
What time is the ballot open?
7 in the morning until 10 at night. Give me your first preference vote for mayor. That is the third candidate on the first ballot paper. I'm number 3. Make me your number 1.
Thank you, George. #NFTR.